Welcome to a Modern Nonprofit podcast, powered by the Charity CFO, your compass for creative solutions in running your nonprofit. I'm Tasha Anderson, your host and guide through this nonprofit maze. From fundraising to volunteer management, we've got your back. Join us each episode for fresh, game-changing strategies that can make a real impact. Hey, nonprofit friends, welcome back to another episode of a Modern Nonprofit podcast. I'm Tasha Anderson, and today I have my new friend, Josi Garfield. Josi is the founder of a marketing and social media platform. You offer services to a nonprofit organization called Branch Out Social. And folks, you all ask questions about this all the time. I see so many articles about it, talking about AI and how to leverage AI. And today we're going to be talking about it specifically, how organizations can use AI with respect to marketing. I'm not an expert in this, so Josi, this is where you come in. Thank you first and foremost for joining in this conversation and share some tips, tricks, and hacks that you've picked up along the way to kind of enlighten some of our nonprofit leaders out there wondering how to put this into practice. So thanks for spending your time with me.
Yes, I'm excited. One of my favorite things to share.
And I'm always geeking out on this AI stuff. I mean, it's a big rabbit hole you can go into, and let's be honest, it's not an easy thing. I think people think, oh, AI, it's going to take over the world and it's going to replace all these things. Maybe like if you get really good at how to use it, and that's a whole skill in and of itself. So that's where I think it's cool to think about how we use AI in the nonprofit space and tips and tricks and hacks for nonprofit leaders or just those working in the nonprofit space to start kind of dabbling and figuring out how to use this tool. It's like anything. It's like when computers started to become a thing and all the different software becomes a thing. It's a tool that's out there, but if you don't know how to use it, then it's kind of all for nothing.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, we've had conversations about how to use AI for grant writing and specifically that most recently, but we're going to talk today about marketing. So marketing is a big topic, Josi. So how would you say nonprofits can leverage AI in their marketing efforts?
Yeah, so one of the biggest issues that I see a lot of nonprofits come across is that they have small teams and they have small budgets, and often those teams have members that don't have a background in marketing or communications, but they're tasked with, drafting press releases, maintaining an email list, creating social media content, a blog if they have some, all of these different pieces of content that they like kind of know how to do, or they don't know at all, and they, Google to get there. And so the use of AI is really helpful to act as that co-creator and perhaps fill in some of those gaps of knowledge and skill that maybe members of your team don't naturally have, which is really beneficial. And it also helps to like streamline some of those tasks. And so, as we know, time is precious. And if your team is small, often you're swamped. And so utilizing AI in your marketing efforts can be really impactful to streamline your tasks to, not hire someone so you save money because you're utilizing either free or like not as expensive or like very cheap tools. And ways that I like to use it and I like suggest nonprofits use it is first in brainstorming, because we know that AI can't replace our background knowledge, our lived experiences, and even parts of our creativity. And so really having it help you as, a part of the process, not the end all be all that like knows and does everything. And brainstorming could be from like going off of ideas that you already have, or if you are running an event, you've never marketed an event before, you don't know how that goes, even starting with, we have an event coming up, we want to raise this much money, or we want this many people to attend, like help us brainstorm like a campaign leading up to this event and how we can do that. And then, you start there and then it brings some up ideas. And you're like, oh, can we further this one? Or how can we execute this one? And so it's really great if you don't even know where to start. Same thing with like if you have a creative block, I feel like it's really good to get the task started. And other ways, I mean, you can utilize it for creating blog posts, drafting press releases, social media content, website content. And even if you don't want it to do the whole piece, you can have it help you like come up with an outline, or maybe there's a template that you want to create, but then you have that in place every time you want to make a new piece of content. So, I mean, the possibilities are endless, as we know, like AI can do a lot stuff, but I think
So
that's the best
much.
place to start. And I feel like those are the areas that people like want the most help in to, quicken the process or help them know where to
Mhm.
even start.
You bring up a good point, like a couple points really. The limitation for nonprofits, and I would argue substantially all nonprofits, not even just small. I think sometimes we think small nonprofits have a limitation with staff and diversity of skills, right? But the reality is marketing is such a beast now in terms of skill set. And what do I mean by that, right? I think there's this misconception that marketing is this catch-all, like, a marketing professional can do all of the things. And I've had some hard and expensive lessons learned with respect to marketing in my own business that, developers or designers are different than copywriters, that are different than email engagement marketing, database administrators, graphic people, social media, all of these are really different, unique skill sets. And there's really no nonprofit I've ever met that captures all of this skill within one space. So I'm with you. I think leveraging AI where your skills might be limited, especially on the copy creation side or just brainstorming topics that you may not have a lot of familiarity with, is a great place to start. So I think you bring up a good point there. And the second part that I really love what you just said is that it really speeds up or arguably could eliminate that writer's block or that brainstorming, just kind of the initiation of it, right? So many times we have this idea of we want to create this blog or we want to create the social media, or we just want to create some sort of content and we just don't know where to start. And I'm sure so many people listening, if you have 100 tasks on your to-do list, mentally or literal to-do list, and there's things like content creation or writing or anything marketing related, especially if you happen to be a fundraiser that is also responsible for communication and marketing, if that's the area you're not comfortable with, it's going to fall to the bottom of your list. It's natural human nature, right? And I love what you said, and I do this on my own. If I have this general direction or inspiration, but I'm not really sure how to put pen to paper, AI allows you to really expedite that kind of initial taking the first few steps to get the ball rolling. It almost does it instantaneously, like, hey, how about a few ideas for this? And then you start seeing all of these ideas, and that really gets the inspiration flowing. So I think that's a great point. I think a lot of people are nervous about using specific AI generated words, content, copy, whatever, and putting that right into their channels. But you bring up a good point. Like, use it for brainstorming, if nothing else. That's a great point. So let's get more into like the logistics of that. What are some of the specific tools or your favorite tools that you've seen successful with respect to marketing, nonprofit specifically, or maybe low cost, easy to learn tools?
Yeah. I think the most common and helpful for that type of task are large language models. So that's going to be like ChatGPT,
Mhm,
Gemini, which was formerly Bard, even Perplexity. So
mhm,
those are the ones that are taking that massive amount of information and then, helping you come up with copy, planning vacations. The one where like it feels very, very endless. I love ChatGPT. I
mhm,
have done all my like learning and practicing on ChatGPT. For that, the paid one I think is a lot better. The
mhm,
free one does a pretty good job, but it's like knowledge base is still back in 2022, where
mhm,
ChatGPT 4 is up to, I think, April of 2023. And so it's more creative. You can get stuff a little quicker. It's just a lot better. And it's still only like, I think, $20 right now. So that's still
mhm.
significantly less than like hiring somebody.
Sure.
And then there's a lot of really good tools for other types of content creation. So I use Opus Clip
Mhm,
a lot, and you can take, say you have a YouTube video or some larger piece of video content, you can upload it into there and you just click like for it to go, and it'll give you a bunch of like little mini clips that they've
mhm,
optimized social media
mhm,
for that you can then use, and it will rate it on how well they think it will perform. How good is your
mm,
hook? How good is it with trending, with trends right now? And I
mhm.
put in like a workshop I did that was an hour long, and it gave me 30 clips to choose from.
Wow. Yeah.
and like shows you the
Wow.
transcript near like right off to the side. And so it's just like, I mean, it's amazing. And I've taken pieces of YouTube content my clients have had that they formerly haven't put on like Instagram because you can't
Mm-hmm.
upload like a link to a video there. And we've been able to then share that content on that platform. So super helpful there. Another one is Descript. I don't know if your team uses this a lot, but often
Mm-hmm.
podcasters use that one because you can also splice up those little clips. And what's cool about that one is you'll see the transcript and you can highlight, the sentence in the transcript that you're like, I want
Mm-hmm.
just the video of me saying this to this.
Mm.
And it will help you do that. Transcripts, audio clips, same again, video. You can just chop up the video if you're trying to make, more bite-sized pieces of content. For me, that saved me a ton of time. I
Mhm.
like the copy, the organic social, like video editing is not my thing. And so Opus Clip has been
Mhm.
amazing because like I have this great piece of content that can be optimized for social, but I don't have the time or I don't know how to
Right.
do it. Um, and then it's also like done in minutes. It's
Right.
insane.
Right.
It would have taken me 2 hours to do half of that. And I did it in
Exactly.
like 10 minutes.
Well, and it's interesting because I've noticed in the past, and even sometimes still, that you had mentioned video editing is not your thing. And again, I think that's like a misunderstanding with marketing, that if I hire a marketing coordinator, they're going to be able to write copy and they're going to be able to create graphics and they're going to be able to do audio or video editing. They're going to be able to write blogs and press releases, and they're going to be able to do all of these things. And mm, without in the absence of some sort of AI, then that would be really difficult for one person to do. And historically, businesses have had to rely on different professionals and different contractors for these different skill sets. And I think using AI allows you to, do a little bit more self-editing and self-creation on those things, where in the past you would have to farm out the editing or cutting up the different videos and that sort of thing. And sometimes it's not just time, but also money. And then when you have all these different contractors, in my experience, you have to manage them all. So that from a small nonprofit perspective, that's also challenging. You bring up something interesting, talking about clients that you've worked with. And I think one of the things that nonprofits don't really do, or at least in my experience, they don't always create, you see a lot of social media blogs. It's a lot of, I'm sorry, social media posts rather. And it could be their blogs, maybe. A lot of times it's just posting. And we talked about video editing. And I think that's an area where a lot of nonprofits, I personally follow a lot of nonprofits. I don't see a lot of content created in this way. But that's an interesting takeaway. Like, why aren't nonprofits using more video? And my suspicion is it's very expensive, right, to get video crews in there, record them. But I'm just thinking about the clients I've worked with. They'll have a good, 7-minute video that they use for special events. Think about your gala video, or if you do like a big annual video, put it on your website and that sort of thing. And it's very expensive to have a professional editor go and clip up all of these things. But how could you, potentially repurpose that content by using one of these AI tools, or at least just to test it out, see if you can get these little micro clips that you can then repurpose and share on social media, and switch up some of the types of posts that you're using, or, build a YouTube channel or something, put it on your
Yeah,
website.
for sure. I mean, any of them could hop on a Zoom call with anyone that they wanted to just like chat with and then
Hmm.
record it, take that link, and then like you have a lot of
Yeah.
content. Like it makes it a lot simpler and a lot faster. Which
Yeah.
is great, especially because I see a lot of like job descriptions in nonprofits where like it's stuffed with so many things that person
Mm,
is like asked to do like a catch-all. They think like, oh, you're
hmm.
a communications or a marketing specialist and you can do all of these things. And I'm always like, the quality of all those things is going to go down because one
Hmm.
person doesn't have the bandwidth to like be good in every area. So they might, be really good in a few and everything else will like fall through. So
Sure.
I think it really helps, make those tasks more even in the quality that they
Hmm.
are.
Exactly, exactly. Or, like you were just saying, or just kind of creating more content, rather than just simply a newsletter that, so many people don't read anyway, if we're focusing strictly on email marketing still. So, AI is a bit of a controversial topic right now, right? I think a lot of people, for profit, nonprofit, it doesn't matter, are still a little cautious in using AI. How would you say nonprofits can use this tool responsibly and then also respond to any backlash or to prevent any backlash that they might get from using these sorts of tools? What would you say to them, or any naysayers that are listening, which I'm sure there are some?
Yeah, I think it's a tool that people are still scared of. Like you
Yeah,
mentioned before, when the internet came around and they're like, oh, this fad will leave. And it's like the biggest joke now.
right.
Um, but I think to use it responsibly, we need to remember that AI is a tool. And like
Mhm.
any other technology, we use it to enhance our work. And the goal is not to replace human creativity and empathy, but to help it and to
Right.
enhance it. Um, and that, the AI should help you, but it can't be your end all be all. It's like a powerful assistant, like a member of your team, talk to it like you would a new intern. But like you wouldn't, give them everything, be like, hey, you'll do a great, perfect job on the first try, and then we're going to use
Mm-hmm.
anything that you create. So I think always remembering that it's a tool, and then always proofreading the outputs that you get. It's not always accurate. I mean, it has so much information and it like tries its
Mm-hmm.
best, but it's still not perfect. And so always proofread your outputs and ask yourself, is it accurate? Is it in line with what we want to say? Is it in our brand voice and tone? Like, is this really us? Versus just putting out, generic stuff that people are going to be like, how did they
Right.
use this? And also like chat GPT and a lot of other language models, like it is a chat, it's a conversation. And so don't
Mm-hmm.
be afraid to like question it and to push back. Like I said, it's not perfect. One time I was having it help me draft a blog post and it,
Mm-hmm.
started off with a really good statistic. It was like, did you know 1 in 3 Utahns are suffering from hunger? And I was like, oh, that is a great stat. Like, where'd you get that? And it came up, I was like, well, I made it up because like that's a good way to start your blog and you should like start it with a statistic, but like it wasn't real. And so if I hadn't like checked on that,
Yeah.
and you can ask most of the AI tools for links, like
Sources, yeah.
Perplexity. Yeah, Perplexity is nice because it always gives you the links so you can look into it.
Mm.
ChatGPT sometimes will do that, but if not, you can always ask like, where did you find that? Um,
Mm.
which I think is really good to like, make sure you're using it responsibly. I think it's irresponsible when you can tell someone like completely just copy and pasted um, the output. And then as for the backlash, I think it's kind of funny, especially in the nonprofit space, because people know that like the teams are small and that the budgets are often like small, or
Mm-hmm.
people, donors don't like paying for overhead, even though like it's
Mm-hmm.
one of the most important parts because like the nonprofit won't run without these people and they can't do it unless they're paid.
Mm-hmm.
So of course they're going to use these tools that are free or very inexpensive. And so I feel like everybody should be like, oh my gosh, this is great for these organizations. Like they should use it and like be happy for
Right.
them. But of course, people are not
Nervous
always that
and
way. So I asked ChatGPT to actually help with this, which is really fun. I said, if I'm a nonprofit organization and I'm using AI in my work, like how would you respond if people have like beef with that and there's
Mhm.
backlash? And then I'll read what it said, speaking as if it was the organization is how it gave me the output. And it
Mhm.
says, using AI doesn't diminish the authenticity or sincerity of our efforts. Instead, it allows us to be more efficient and effective, ensuring that we can reach and engage more people with our message. The heart and soul of our work remain human driven, with AI serving as a support to help us achieve our mission more effectively. And I thought that was
I
great.
mean, written like a PR professional wrote that, right? That was good.
Yeah. And I was like, and that's, I think, how most nonprofit professionals feel that they're
Hmm.
not trying to be sneaky or sleazy or like anything like that. Like they need the help, and this is a great way that they can get it. And so I feel like
Yeah.
good statements like that, being transparent if you're using it and maybe your board wants to know or something
Hmm.
like that, I think is about, all you need to do. And if people still
Hmm.
have complaints about it, we'll just wait a little
Yeah.
bit until they get over it.
I think people that have those complaints are probably those that haven't spent a lot of time with this tool. And I say that, and I love the example you just gave in ChatGPT's response to the naysayers, because when I've used it, it's not so much that my intention wasn't there, that my context of the conversation wasn't there, that my points weren't there. It's how do you use these, in some cases, fragmented thoughts or kind of ramblings that I do sometimes, and how do you make it well written, articulate, clear, and concise for the intended user that you have in mind. So you keep using the words like tool and enhancing the work. And also other people's strengths. Like you might have someone that could have some phenomenal ideas, but maybe writing from a specific angle is not their skill set, right? For example, I've learned in my marketing work, there's a difference between writing copy and English to be used in an academic setting or, basic communication versus a language and a tone that you would write for marketing purposes, website copy, that sort of thing in a digital space, right? And that's something that I've learned. And you might be a phenomenal writer. You could have a, PhD in English, for example. But that doesn't mean that you can necessarily write copy that is interesting for email marketing or websites. So all the same points are there, but the tone is slightly changed. But
Yeah.
speaking of
And
which, let's dive into that tone a little bit too, JC. I know you have some thoughts on how these nonprofits can target their messaging by using what in the AI world we call prompts. And this is how we take our initial raw thoughts or ideas or attempts at brainstorming and put it into practice. First, tell us what are prompts for those of us that don't know.
yeah, so your prompt is that like initial ask that you put into whatever AI tool you're using. So when you go in there and you say, I am drafting a blog post about blank, can you help me get started? It's basically whatever you put in the chat to the AI tool is your prompt, what you're prompting it, what you're asking it to do.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So how can those that are new to AI start using prompts, or what would be your kind of recommendation how to get started? What's some tips for prompting? Because that's the key in AI. If you all that are listening have not heard of this before, prompting is everything, I understand, when using AI.
Yeah,
What are your
for
tips
sure.
there?
I think your output, what AI gives you is going to only be as good as your input. And I bet prompt engineers becomes like a job down the road of people who are just really good at asking it what to do. I think it's similar to like Googling is a
Yeah.
skill, and that
Yeah.
like people will search for the same information, but if you can word it the right way, you're going to get your answer a lot more
Yeah.
like clearly and faster. And it also helps when people are like, oh, I can spot a ChatGPT caption like a mile away. I can tell the AI did it. Like, no, you can tell that somebody had a poor prompt that gave them content that they then used. So the first thing to get like a really effective prompt is to train your AI. And so when you open it up, yes, it knows a lot of things, but you really have to like help hone it in and like give it the information it needs and as much context as possible. So you should start every chat training it. So you want to introduce it to your organization, brief overview, maybe some history, what your mission is, maybe your core like objectives as a mission, maybe like milestones you've had in the past, things that you're currently struggling with, like as much detail as you can to give it, the information it needs. And then also your brand identity. So especially your brand voice and tone. And if your organization doesn't feel like they have one yet, then like tell ChatGPT that or whatever AI tool you're using, and it can help you define that. Even giving it like, this is what our visual elements look like. These are our colors, these are our fonts, this is kind of what our logo looks like. That can be helpful. And then your target audience, their demographics, interests, challenges, and then your content goals. Key messaging is also good if someone has key messaging like already in their like brand guidelines. That's perfect to put in there. And then also at the end of that, asking it. So if you say, we want help with content creation across a lot of different platforms, here's all the background information you need. and then asking it, is there anything else you need to be able to like draft this content effectively? And that's
Mm,
really good because there's often stuff that like, I didn't know you wanted that, or I didn't know that would be
mm,
helpful. And it
mm-hmm,
will tell you, what it needs, which is
mm,
amazing. So that's your first step. And after you have trained your AI and it's like has, most of the information it needs, then you're ready to craft that really effective prompt for the ask that you have.
mm-hmm,
And so, one of the biggest things that I've learned, and I've learned a lot of this stuff from Lauren at the Muse Studio. If anyone
mm-hmm,
like wants to follow her, she was an early adapter of AI, graphic designer, like turned AI like genius. But because these large language models have so much information, you really have to like help it narrow
pare
down
it
what you
down.
want
Yeah.
to do.
Mm-hmm,
And to do this, you're going to tell it who to be and like who to act like. And so if you are creating social media content or website copy, you can say, act as an expert content strategist with 10 years of experience in the nonprofit space that's really good
mm-hmm,
at, storytelling, or that's really good at creating copy that converts, or
mm-hmm,
act like a PR professional with 30 years of media experience drafting press releases, handling crisis communications, different stuff like
mm-hmm.
that, which will
Yeah.
really help whatever tool you're using, then know like, okay, I'm going to forget all these other things that could possibly be in the scenario and just focus on acting like this. And you can give it a couple different roles. You don't have to like just do one, but that's going to be really helpful to increase like the quality and effectiveness of your output. And then of course the ask. If you ask it for things in more open-ended questions, usually you'll get better responses or like more options even. And so instead of
Mm,
like, write me a blog post about this, maybe like, we want to draft a blog post about this. Here's all the information, what directions can we go? And then from there,
mm,
it can give you some ideas maybe you didn't think of. You're like, okay, let's follow this one. And then eventually you can get to like that drafted um, thing, that graph, like output, whatever you're going for.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And along with those ask, I think like you can ask for outlines, you can ask for it to draft the content, you can ask for it to repurpose your content. Um,
mm,
Especially like you said, even if you're a great writer, you can't always do it for every platform. So you could have like a really good LinkedIn caption and you're like, we love this. And then you put it in, you're like, can you trim this down? Because we also want to share it on X. Or we're
mm-hmm,
putting this on Instagram. The call to action has to be different because we can't click on a link and it's a little more casual or a little more fun.
mm-hmm,
Um, so asking it to do a lot of this, or a lot of people worry like if there's sensitive information, but they want help from AI,
mm,
you can say like, give it like a fake scenario, like say this happened, how should we handle this? Or can you
mm,
give us an outline for like a crisis press release when something happens? So
mm-hmm,
there's some workarounds there. And then next, the purpose of your content is really important. So if you want to say, please help us draft a blog post to educate our audience or to inform them or to spread awareness about this, that will also just like good context that it needs to know why we're creating this content and what its like end goal is, will
mm-hmm.
also really help the quality of your output. And then of course the audience. So who's going to see it? And like
Right.
you know target audience because you gave it to them. But say like maybe this post is for parents or this post
Mm,
is for,
mm-hmm,
teenagers. Same message essentially, but those little sub audiences might need it a little differently. So it's good to get really specific on like who in your audience this piece of content is going for, and then to tell it what the call to action is. If you don't tell it, it'll probably make one up, which is like fine, I
mm,
guess, if you didn't have something specific in mind, or if you're asking it like, what should be our call to action? But if not, you probably do have one in mind, like, oh, we want them to register for the event, or we want them to read the full blog post and visit our website. So just make
mm-hmm,
sure it knows that. And the final details that I would include is what platforms it's going to be on. So that will help it if it knows
mm,
it's, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, because then it's also going to help you keep it within the length constraints.
right.
And then how long you want it to be. So sometimes it'll be like, I want a really short Instagram caption, or I want a medium length one, or I want a long one.
Mm-hmm,
Or I tell it like, give me each of those options, and then I'm going to look at it. And you can also tell it how many options that you want. instead of if you don't want just one, you can say like, give me 3 options for this caption. And then with that output, you can be like, okay, I like this part of 1 and this part of 2. Like, let's rewrite.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
It's
lot,
a,
but
it is a lot, but what I was thinking as you're describing all of this, I'm almost envisioning like a new employee orientation. Like you hire a marketing coordinator and you are acting as the marketing manager or the strategist. And in order for your marketing coordinator or any consultant, anybody that you would be working with, you have to share all of these things. I've worked with lots of marketing consultants and I have to share the whole overview of the company, the brand style guide, the intended audience, what kind of content are we targeting? Are there specific keywords that you're looking for? What platforms are you trying to do this? What is the frequency you're looking at here? How long do you want it to be? What tone of language do you want it to be? All of these little micro decisions are things that need to be decided on and communicated really to anyone, if you think about it, whether it's an employee or whether it's a contractor. And in this case, when you were kind of describing all these things, it's like ChatGPT is like one of your staff, you have to feed all of this information. And I think because I've dabbled with, some AI and tested some of these prompts and have been blown away with the difference. And you had mentioned a little bit earlier, it's pretty obvious to people when you use ChatGPT without effective prompting and you essentially copy and paste that. It's pretty obvious to anyone that's ever used an AI tool like that. And the difference between obvious, not great, you're going to get some heat on it because it's almost like you're not even trying, right? That's the way I think the digital marketing world would look at stuff that's not effectively prompted and just copied and paste. You're not really trying all that work. It's kind of sloppy, right? Versus something that is used or created through AI, but through effective prompting and all of the information that you're giving to the tool. It's really, really interesting how well the end product or the output could be. So it's something like you said, with some light editing or obviously some proofing to make sure that you're comfortable and maybe fact checked a few things before publishing it. But really, not everything is fact check needed, right? Not everything that you create through AI is rattling off statistics or cross-referencing, certain topics that need to be fact checked. Sometimes, like, some of the examples that you were giving, it could just be, we want to write a newsletter and share like this thing that happened at our organization. And it's intended for, donors versus a different newsletter that goes to parents. It's like the same rough draft, but with different tones. And finally, the last thing I was kind of thinking about that I've really found interesting with something like ChatGPT is creating a tone of language. And something that I didn't think about when I first started this firm and that I've had to get better and better at is defining what tone your organization speaks, right? And I'm talking consistently throughout your website and your newsletters and your copy. And if you have not landed on a tone, I would guess that ChatGPT could even help you figure out what that is. And I'll tell you, if you, and what I've done is I copy and paste different excerpts of copy, from my website and different materials and dump that into ChatGPT. And to paraphrase is like, what is this tone that you've been writing if you can't really articulate the words? Or you can just copy and paste all that content in there and you think you're presenting yourself in a certain way, but ChatGPT is like, actually, it sounds like this. Not maybe the way that you thought. So all kinds of cool ways to use it. But before using it, Josi, what should nonprofits do with the outputs or the content that they've created with AI before blasting it out to the public?
Yep. Putting it out
Even
in
if
the
it's
world.
good and well prompted.
Yeah, I feel like I covered that a little bit before accidentally,
Yeah.
but it's okay. I think you need to ask yourself at least these 3 questions. Is the information accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Does it sound like our organization?
Yes.
Is it the
Tone.
correct tone? And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like those 3 are the biggest questions. And I would also just keep in mind that unlike Google, where we put one thing in and we want one thing out, often like the first draft or the first output that the AI gives you might not be the last one. And so
Mm-hmm.
be afraid to reiterate and ask it to, enhance this or do this a little better, or like this isn't quite our tone.
Mm-hmm.
Try again. Because I feel like that's another way that people like they just took the first thing that came their way, use that output, but like you can push it. Um, yeah. So those are my biggest three questions, or yeah, three questions that like I ask myself before I'm going to use the content that I'm putting out there, and of course proofread everything. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like can still make typos, not often, but like it's still not perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
like you said, if you treat it like an employee and just like put that in your mind, I think that really helps people get past some of the mind blocks they have about using AI, or like they feel
Yeah.
like I don't know how to use it. Just talk to it like you would, a new team member and what you need them to do, and treat their output like you would that if someone who submitted a draft of something to you that they wrote.
Exactly. Exactly. So there are some people out there, Josie, that's like, all great tips. I've tried it. It's too overwhelming, or I have 99 other things I need to do. I'm just not going to be a DIY marketing person. Or if you want to get some more information on some of the work that you're doing, how would nonprofit organizations connect with you and your company to at least be more intentional about their marketing strategy, their social media work, or maybe even hire you, frankly, just to do that for them now that you've shown them what could be possible. Like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
I can do video content and blogs and social media, and I don't have to do it all myself. How would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I am on LinkedIn, Josie Garfield on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram. It's branchout_social.
Okay.
And my website, of course, is just it's
Okay.
branchout-social.com. And I'm sure we can put all that in the show
Show
notes.
notes.
And
Sure.
I focus on organic social media content, and then a little bit of email and blog support. And so it's all those things that are kind of time consuming. And then also engagement. So being in on those accounts and interacting with your
Mm-hmm.
audience, which most nonprofit executives and team members don't have time
Just don't
for.
have time. Yeah.
Yeah, and anyone who does want to DIY, I have some free resources on my website as well. And I'm in the midst of creating a prompt builder that has all of these pieces that we just talked about
Mm,
that then you can take and mix and match to create, the exact prompt that you want. So that
mm.
is also be super helpful for people who want to do it, but maybe don't know where to start or want to get in that,
Yeah.
like learn how to prompt. So that,
I
yeah,
love
those are all the
that.
that come on.
I love that because, we did talk about social quite a bit, but although, not to be forgotten that prompting and things like that, I mean, think about you all when you're doing your annual reports or, even periodic updates, grant reporting, that sort of thing when you're talking about how do I take all of this fragmented thoughts, but I need it in a particular tone. I need it to be well written. I know it's just the endless stream of writing and communication that nonprofits have to do with different audiences. So your donor database, your program participants, which could be, themselves or their parents or someone else, your board or committees, your funders. I mean, the the list is endless. And so I really love this tool, if nothing else, to allow people that are running nonprofits to spend less time proofing and regurgitating the same information in all these different formats. I think that's a big frustration for a lot of people in this space. Um, all these different people, they need to communicate in this different way. So this has
Sure.
been such a helpful, and I'm excited to hear more about this prompt builder, because I think it could be really transformative for so many. Well, JC,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for your time and your talent and sharing tips. I'm sure so many people will find this informative. And again, reach out, branch out social if you want to talk more to Josie about her work. But that is a wrap for today. I hope you all enjoyed this content. A shameless plug for account engagement, as we were talking about a little bit before. See, the more you interact with the content that we prepare or push out there, the more other people can find this content. So wherever you're listening to this or watching it, whether it's on YouTube or you're streaming on a platform, please just engage with it so other nonprofit leaders like yourself can come across these tips, tricks, and hacks that we're putting out. Until next time, bye friends. That's all we have for you today. Once again, I'm Tasha Anderson with the Charity CFO, and this is a Modern Nonprofit podcast. Make sure to subscribe to A Modern Nonprofit Podcast on all major streaming platforms so you will stay notified for when the latest episode drops, which will help you stay in the know about anything nonprofit related. Also, join our community on Facebook by searching for A Modern Nonprofit Podcast and follow us on all of our social media accounts. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.